Hey, I often get, every day, I get questions about people who are growing in the knowledge of the truth, seeing that there is a different way than what they've experienced, and then start getting frustrated with themselves because they can't seem to get in fast enough to this rest. They know it's available now. They know it's of grace now, but they're like, I still condemn myself. How am I going to get free from this? Because we think that knowing the truth is good enough and instant. We're microwave it and I'm done, But I'll call this video, this has got to be short. I'll call this video, the air is breathable. You can take off your suit. It's the atmosphere of sonship and no condemnation, freedom in Christ, bold approach to God, no sin consciousness is something that is alien to us. It's an alien planet that we can't even barely see it. We barely believe it's there. And we find ourselves on this planet, and everybody told us we're on the planet, and they told us we could take off our spacesuit and walk around and breathe. But we don't believe it. Occasionally we see someone walking around and breathing without a spacesuit, and we think, well, they must be superhuman. They must have some special thing that I don't have. There's no way I'm taking off my spacesuit. They're like, no, it's fine. You can take it off. There's nothing special about me. The atmosphere is fine. The atmosphere is sonship. You can breathe in it. But here's the thing. It is so alien to you. And what you know, reflexively, is like a spacesuit. Protecting yourself from the atmosphere of sonship, because to you, it's got to be toxic. There's got to be a catch here somewhere. And we are so afraid, gripped with the spirit of bondage and fear. That is the description of the flesh since the fall. And we have been programmed neurologically, physiologically, emotionally, and conceptually by this thing our whole life. So that to us, taking off the spacesuit is just absurd and impossible. I can't even figure out what the latch is. I've never taken off my spacesuit. I don't think I can breathe in the presence of God. And that is a reflexive response, meaning it's so embedded in your psychology that you're not going to just think your way out of this one. If you have a acrophobia, I've got acrophobia, and when I climb certain steps, like at a stadium, and there's a lot of people, I'm afraid of heights, and I find myself clinging to the rail, and I can barely even think. There's nothing I can do about it. I can tell myself it's irrational all you want, but if there's something physiologically that triggers where I just can't even move, and I've never seemed to outgrow it or think about it. Even while I'm up there, I'm going, this is ridiculous. What am I clinging to this fence for? But that's what it's like. We have to understand that we are absolutely incapable of just willing ourselves into the presence of God, and we are opposed to it, terrified of it, and it's so alien to us that we've maybe taken 2 breaths of that atmosphere by accident because it leaked through our suit one time, and we go, that wasn't too bad. That was actually pretty good. I'd like to have that happen again. But and we think that there has to be some sort of elaborate ritual in order to get the sense of being in the spirit and in an atmosphere again. And we usually default to thinking that maybe we didn't do this, or maybe we didn't do that, or maybe we didn't, why don't I have that feeling? The reason we don't have that feeling is because we are programmed to not have that feeling. It's totally alien to us. We are not accustomed to it. We've not been introduced to it. We don't know what Abba Father sounds like in our spirit. And Jesus lived comfortably in the bosom of the Father. It was his home. For us, it's not our home. It is our home, but it's not. We don't believe that. And so what do? This is where we have to realize that with the flesh is the flesh. And it's afraid. It's gripped with the spirit of bondage and fear. It is under condemnation. And anytime it thinks about God, it thinks about its judgment. All we can do is agree as quickly as possible. Yes, the flesh was judged. And preach the gospel to ourselves and meditate on the truth and marinate in it and use it to come forward to God, and don't base your experience, what you think your experience is, on your feelings. What if I don't feel like I'm in the presence of God, even though I just said, thank you, Jesus, you've reconciled me to God by faith in your blood, and I am joined to you, and I'm accepted in the beloved, and there's no condemnation for me? What if that doesn't change my feelings? What if I'm so programmed that it just can't even penetrate? Well, where are you going to go? He has the words of life. You're going to keep coming to him, especially once you've discovered this path. And and what you'll find is that he uses this persistent feeling of wrongness that you have all the time to make sure you don't rest on your laurels. People who go through this religious scrupulosity, or whatever you want to call it, nobody can understand what they're going through other than them while they're going through it, because no one else seems to be going through it. And they are so uncomfortable, and they read their Bible all the time, and they listen to grace teachings all the time, and they do everything they can to feed their faith, because they know that it's like you're just trying to get a gasp of air. You're suffocating, and there's no way you can just enjoy your life and forget about it and go back to the mall and go do whatever. You can barely mind your own business throughout the day without having a panic attack. Nobody can help you with that. Only Jesus can. And he uses that experience to draw you to himself in a very desperate way. And all I can say is no one can bring you into rest but Jesus Christ. He's your Joshua. He's the one who fights the enemies. And you don't know how to rest in him. He's going to have to supply it to you. And yet you're told to labor to enter that rest every day. Well, if you can't bring yourself in, how are you supposed to labor? Well, think about it like pregnancy. A woman cannot control that her body goes into contractions. And when the contraction hits, it's all she can think about. And it's sorrowful, and it's groaning, and it's painful. And apparently a woman's body knows how much she can take, and it'll let off. And then you're just waiting in the waiting room. You can't force a contraction to come on, But when it comes on, you can't think about anything else. You are looking for rest. You are laboring to enter that rest. All she can go is, I know that baby's going to come out at some point, And while she's pushing and groaning during the contraction, it's all she can do. Does she really need to be told push? She's going to push. But everybody around her is going, push, push. Why? What, is she going to forget? It's all she can think about. But that's how it is. And God's given us these warnings in Hebrews especially. Enter that rest. Today, hear his voice. Don't harden your hearts. And it's possible to harden your heart. But the people we're talking about who struggle with this one, they don't need anybody to tell them to labor to enter rest. It's the only thing on their mind. And it makes them miserable. Well, you're in a contraction, all I can do is say push, and God says push. And you know what? The season may let up. You may actually have a period where you're not continually focused on pushing because you're in the middle. It gives you a break. But the Lord is going to bring you into rest. The people who have this kind of experience eventually enter rest. The people who have no idea what this experience we're talking about is usually don't care about rest either. They think you're just lazy and you're looking for a license to sin. The people who throw all kinds of accusation at those who have gone into the waiting room, come out with a baby. Well, where'd you get that? Who'd you sleep with to get that? Was it, all the accusations. Why would you accuse someone coming out of the labor room with a baby? But that's what happens. We finally rest after all of our agony and contractions. We come out and we're satisfied. We're so happy because we've got the baby. And then they start accusing us of, You need to get up and get to work. What are you doing? No, I had a baby. I'm all focused on that now. You're just lazy. I'm stretching the analogy a little bit. But my point is, you're not going to be able to control these contractions. And you're not going to be able to force how fast they come or how long it goes. It's up to the Lord. He knows what you need. But there's the you before you were pregnant that had no idea what a baby was like and was terrified of the idea. And then you got pregnant, and all you could think of was, I got to get this baby out of me, especially as it approached. And then when you're in the contractions, nobody has to tell you to push, but they're going to tell you to push. So you hear me saying push, we enter that rest, we talk about rest, that's like saying push. You don't need anybody to tell you that. You're already in the agony of your birth pangs. And he says, I will not bring into labor and not deliver. He said that in Isaiah, and I'm paraphrasing it. We should look it up. All you could do is push when you feel it, and if you don't feel it and you are enjoying the baby, try to be patient with those who are still agonizing. Sometimes I'm just like, what? I got my baby. Where's your baby? Why do you keep pushing? It's not that easy. Nobody can hurry this up. Nobody can will it. It's got to happen organically, and the Lord has to do it. And it's a deep, deep work He's doing in us to deliver us from the spirit of bondage and fear and acclimate us to the spirit of sonship. So there's two analogies here. Yes, you're on a foreign planet. Yes, it's safe to breathe. You can take off your space suit, and we're afraid to do that. And when we go through this thing where all I can think is to get this baby out of me, get this spacesuit off of me, I can't live like this anymore, that is from the Lord, and He is orchestrating it, and He is causing you to groan, and He's groaning with groanings deeper than what you can utter. And just read Hebrews 8 and read John 16 about the labor and the sorrow you feel and the pangs because you're groaning for a childbirth. He puts it in that context. And then when He brings us into rest, really, where He changes the atmosphere, and I can't relate to that old guy who was always trying to get the baby out. I mean, can you relate, once you've had a kid for 10 years, to the woman in the delivery room? And can you relate to walking around on a planet where you can breathe the air comfortably and you're having your life and your family? Can you relate to what it was like to fear taking off your spacesuit? No, you can't relate to that anymore. And that's what it's like. You tend to forget the sorrow because now there's the baby. Or you forget the old spacesuit because now you're breathing the air. And sometimes we forget how difficult and traumatic it was. I went through years and years and years of anxiety attacks. And I knew that there was a way into the grace of God, but it was slow, and it took a lot of programming for the Lord to renew my mind. And I still need every day to be renewed, but it's much easier now than it was 10 years ago. Trust me. And it's worth it. Definitely. You're never going to look back and say, man, I wish I hadn't gone through that. You're going to go, I am so thankful I delivered the baby. I'm so thankful I took off my spacesuit. I'm glad I went through travail, because once the baby comes, you go, it's worth it. It really is. Hard to believe when you're on the other side, but it's worth it. Keep pursuing the truth. When I say preach the gospel to yourself, preach the gospel to yourself. You may immediately have a feeling or not, but at least you know what's true, and what's available, and your feelings may or may not line up. We don't judge by that. We just judge by what's true, and we trust the Lord to bring us in. He's the only one who can bring us into the land. Nobody's ever entered into the good land with the riches and the comfort and the atmosphere that is promised to us without the Lord bringing them in, because we won't go by nature. We run the other way. All right, take care.